समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
India finds itself navigating one of the most turbulent geopolitical periods in recent memory. The strategic alignment between Pakistan and China during Operation Sindoor, which was India's first two-front war, and Islamabad's engagement with the United States after that, have complicated India's regional and global strategic calculus. Meanwhile, West Asia, after 12 days of heavy war, teeters on a brink of a fragile peace, and Eastern Europe remains mired in conflict. Amid this global instability, Turkey is quietly deepening its footprint in the Indian subcontinent. Hours after Israel launched Operation Rising Lion on 13th June, the Turkish Navy's Ada-class corvette, the TCG Buyukata, docked in Colombo. And what makes it really interesting is that it was the sixth such visit to Sri Lanka in just a year. The personal reception by Sri Lanka's acting defense minister signals Ankara's rising influence in the region. Once focused largely on Muslim-majority nations, Turkey's evolving engagement with non-Muslim states such as Sri Lanka hints at a broader strategic pivot, one that deserves close attention in New Delhi's long-term security assessments. And the question is, are we taking note of it? In recent years, Turkey has rapidly expanded its defense footprint in the Indian subcontinent, emerging as the second largest arms supplier after China to both Pakistan as well as Bangladesh. The strategic depth of this engagement with Pakistan is particularly evident in the joint defense initiatives like the Turkish fifth-generation fighter project, the Khan project. Beyond South Asia's continental core, Ankara is also extending its reach into the Indian Ocean region or the IOR region, including into the Maldives. However, it is Turkey's growing ties with Sri Lanka, a non-Muslim majority state and one of the 6 key island nations in the IOR, that suggest a more comprehensive regional recalibration. Now, few in India have noted that Turkey has played a significant role in modernizing Sri Lanka's naval capabilities, and this is a point which was acknowledged by none other than Sri Lanka's defense minister himself. Since 2021, Ankara has sought to intensify defense cooperation with Colombo, even as its partnerships with Pakistan and Bangladesh drew the spotlight in New Delhi. Now today, both Sri Lanka and Turkey describe each other as extremely valuable allies, and I'm reading out from the joint statement actually, signaling a strategic convergence that goes beyond defense. Now, for the uninitiated, the 6 island nations of the IOR, which have strategic importance, are Sri Lanka, Maldives, Seychelles, Mauritius, Madagascar, and Comoros. And what is to be noted is that while they may be small in landmass, but they command vast maritime zones. Turkey's growing assertive engagement in this arena shows a shift from identity-based diplomacy to one driven by geopolitical calculus. For India, this should raise concern not just over Turkey's growing presence in its maritime periphery, but also the potential for alignment with China, hinting at a broader strategy to counterbalance India's influence in the Indo-Pacific. So, for now, when we talk about, encirclement of India, we are talking about a Pakistan propped up by China and a Bangladesh propped up by China. But what about if there is a Turkey joining the Pakistan-China-Bangladesh axis? And this is what I'm trying to indicate at. But what strategic framework then enables a NATO member Turkey to deepen its Asian and Indo-Pacific ambitions? And for that, we will have to understand Turkey's Asia Anew. Unveiled in August of 2019, Turkey's Asia Anew initiative represents a recalibrated foreign policy approach aimed at leveraging Asia's geopolitical and economic centrality in a multipolar world. Framed around cooperation in diplomacy, trade, education, and culture, Asia Anew, at least at first glance, appears to promote an inclusive engagement. Yet, beneath its inclusive rhetoric lies a more selective reality, most notably in the defense sector. Now, why do I say so? While Ankara has expanded arms sales to countries such as Pakistan and Bangladesh, India, that is Asia's dominant regional power, has been conspicuously excluded, or in fact, I should say, blacklisted. Economically, Asia represents both promise and peril for Turkey. Although the region constitutes a third of Ankara's global trade, an overwhelming trade deficit, primarily with China, clouds the picture. So through free trade agreements with South Korea, with Malaysia, with Singapore, Turkey seeks to integrate more deeply into regional supply chains. These efforts, bolstered by domestic export incentives, paint a positive economic narrative. But this is only one part of the picture. Now let's come to the other part of the picture. Strategically, Ankara is attempting a balancing act, strengthening ties with Asian powers while remaining anchored to NATO and the West. Yet, internal policy debates reflect a deeper ambivalence. Eurasianists push for closer ties with China, while traditionalists caution against undermining transatlantic relationships. So in practice, Asia Anew has not yet produced transformative outcomes. A recent scholarly analysis, which is footnoted here, noted the limited impact of the initiative across East and Southeast Asia despite its 4-year run. And still, Turkey possesses certain diplomatic assets. With 54 missions across Asia and leadership roles in regional forums such as the Asian Parliamentary Assembly, Ankara has institutional tools to deepen ties. A thriving defense industry is another tool. Localized successes, especially in defense industrial cooperation with Pakistan, with Malaysia, with Bangladesh, with Sri Lanka, and many other countries, hint at important footholds, if not yet strategic breakthroughs. Now, from India's perspective, Turkey's narrative of shared Asian values often rings hollow. Ankara's open alignment with Pakistan, especially its vocal support and technical support during Operation Sindoor and on the Kashmir issue, has significantly damaged its credibility in Indian foreign policy circles. Far from appearing as a neutral, cooperative actor, Turkey increasingly looks like a state pursuing selective partnerships shaped by rivalry, not just regional harmony. And ultimately, remember that Asia Anew is neither an empty slogan nor a fully realized strategy. It is a fluid, opportunistic framework, one that enables Ankara to frame its geopolitical ambitions under the broader guise of multipolarity. For New Delhi, this selective engagement raises red flags, as it reflects less a genuine Asian convergence and more a calculated attempt to reshape regional alignments, often in ways that directly challenge Indian interests. Now, a subset of Asia Anew still requires separate mention, and that subset is the Turkish presence in the IOR, or the Indian Ocean region. So Turkey's push for indigenous defense production has allowed it to reduce dependency on its traditional Western allies and expand its strategic autonomy, especially in emerging geopolitical theaters. Now remember that the Indian Ocean links Africa and Asia through an extensive network of Pacific waterways and ports. Turkey's growing defense exports have made significant inroads into Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC countries, and parts of the Horn of Africa, where Ankara's influence is increasingly visible these days. Somalia, in particular, exemplifies this transformation. And remember that Somalia is at the tip of the Horn of Africa. With strong political and military agreements in place, Turkey is cementing its presence in the Horn and Red Sea regions, areas of vital strategic interest for India. Notably, the Exclusive Economic Zone, or the EEZ of Somalia, is witnessing increased Turkish naval activity, and discussions are underway for establishing a missile and space rocket test site there. Now, this would not only bolster Ankara's long-range missile capabilities, but also mark its entry into the global space arena, further enhancing its defense export appeal. But that's not all. In parallel, Turkey is extending its reach into the other sides of the Indian Ocean region. In 2024, the Maldives signed a major drone deal with Ankara and hosted the Turkish warship at a time when its relations with India were severely strained. This follows 6 Turkish naval visits to Sri Lanka within a single year, an engagement largely overlooked in Indian strategic discourse. While India's defense circles have monitored Turkey's growing alignment with Pakistan, they have not yet registered the broader, more subtle but steady encroachment occurring across the IOR. With India's strategic mindset still largely fixated on countering China, and of course understandably so, Turkey's growing regional assertiveness has slipped under the radar. Strategic discourse in India is still focused on counterbalancing Turkey by deepening ties with Greece and Cyprus. And I do agree that that's important, but it is not enough. Operation Sindoor should be a turning point. The operation helps spark a more vigilant approach within Indian security circles toward regional developments. Turkey's emergence as a disruptive actor and potential arch-rival in India's maritime periphery should not be underestimated. The lack of peer-reviewed research or robust media engagement on this topic has been a strategic blind spot. If India fails to rigorously assess Ankara's evolving role in its near and extended backyard, it risks being encircled on yet another front. A comprehensive strategic review is no longer optional. It is imperative. I'll be back to discuss that and more. Stay tuned.